Welcome to the presentation of our research article from Northrise University in Ndola, Zambia. The topic is the early warning indicators of bankruptcy risk, the predictive importance of liquidity ratios in state-owned enterprises. The researchers are Linda Kimoni and the presenter, myself, Peter Walia, Jesse Mwewa, Hedson Malata, Mwansamalama, Lilian Mulea, Besta Nguluwe, and Charles Chomba. We're going to start with the introduction, and then we'll state the problem statement before we look at the findings, the discussions, and then we conclude. So the problem statement. Now, state-owned enterprises face recurring financial distress and bailouts. They struggle with sustainable financial management practices, and the existing tools fail to predict bankruptcy risk. Now, there's a research gap, and there is no SOE-focused predictive tools for bankruptcy. Now, most studies focus on private firms, not state-owned enterprises. There is therefore a need for proactive management strategies for state-owned enterprises. Now, our research hypothesis, or rather, the first one is there is no significant difference in solvency ratio between bankruptcy and non-bankrupt firms. And the null hypothesis, the second one is there's no significant difference in liquidity ratios between bankrupt and non-bankrupt firms. For our literature review on bankruptcy, we reviewed the Shelley, Walsh, and then Atman 2018, who said bankruptcy disrupts economy, the jobs and services, and it's driven by inefficiency, corruption. That's according to Megason and Neta 2018. The IMF 2022 report says poor governance in state-owned enterprises leads to bankruptcy in African countries. Again, the same report and Lungu and Mulenga 2021 state that Zambian companies have consistently required substantial government support to maintain their operations. On the other hand, Keder and Khan 2018 and Utu 2024 state that financial mismanagement is a key factor in SOE bankruptcy. Now, for our research design, our methodology, and then the research design, we use the mixed methods approach. For the quantitative approach, we looked at financial ratios and bankruptcy prediction. For the qualitative aspect, we looked at interviews. We had interviews with state-owned enterprises, finance managers. And then, of course, we triangulated to improve the validity of the findings. For the population, all SOEs in Zambia, that were those that were listed under the Industrial Development Corporation database were looked at. So for the quantitative part, 33 SOEs, which represented 101 firm-year observations, were looked at, and the data from audited reports from 2013 to 2022. Then for the qualitative aspects, the sample was 5 SOEs who were purposely sampled, and senior financial officials were interviewed. Then for data analysis, we used Python. That was used as a tool. And for descriptive statistics, summarized financial health. Visualization was done with box plots and violin plots. And point by serial correlation tested bankruptcy associations. And of course, the significance was tested at 0.05. Therefore, findings and key objectives. The major finding is that liquidity is a key predictor. There was a significant negative correlation with bankruptcy risk that was found. There was a lower liquidity, which strongly predicts higher risk of financial distress. The major finding was, surprisingly, a solvency paradox. Higher solvency ratios correlate with a high risk of bankruptcy. So this likely indicates over-leverage and not genuine financial health. So there's the connection to the research question is that liquidity and solvency ratios are confirmed as early warning indicators of bankruptcy. However, their interpretation in the SOE context is new, especially with the solvency issue. So as you can see those results there. Now, based on the results, there is a statistically significant negative relationship between bankruptcy risk and liquidity ratio. As you can see, negative 0.022 and the p-value was 0.024. So this indicates that firms with lower liquidity ratios are at a greater risk of bankruptcy, supporting the hypothesis that weak short-term liquidity is a significant predictor of financial distress. Now, on the subgroup results, and we compare the sectors, the utility companies showed the stable but that they face cash flow challenges from delayed payments. in those in the hospitality industry vulnerable to seasonal and external shocks like COVID-19, and those in the rail business, they struggle with aging infrastructure and road transport competition. Surprisingly, and a new finding is that bankrupt firms have a higher median solvency ratio than solvent firms. So this contradicts conventional theory and suggests potential over-leverage. As you can see, when we support these findings with evidence on the solvency and bankruptcy status on the volume plot, unexpectedly bankrupt firms had higher solvency, potentially signaling excessive debt and reliance rather than genuine financial health. So there was an over-reliance on debt rather than a good sign of financial health. The liquidity ratio by bankruptcy. Bankrupt firms cluster at low liquidity ratios, confirming that poor short-term financial health is a key predictor of bankruptcy. Then the discussions. We interpret this as follows. The liquidity is a clear theory confirming predictor of bankruptcy risk. Surprisingly, higher solvency correlates with higher bankruptcy risk, suggesting potential over-leverage disguised as financial strength. The connection to literature is that it supports established literature on liquidity's role in financial distress. And it challenges conventional interpretation of solvency as a pure health indicator. Now, we have a unique contribution here, as this suggests that there's a critical financial paradox specific to Zambian SOEs. It emphasizes that not all healthy ratios indicate genuine financial health. So the implications and limitations. So the practical and policy impact is that SOEs managers must prioritize liquidity management and monitoring, and the policymakers should develop tailored early warning systems using these indicators. Of course, for the theoretical impact, there's low liquidity is a proven early warning sign for bankruptcy risk, and it suggests that solvency predictive power may be inversely related to risk. And the limitations are that relatively small sample size of 33 state-owned enterprises limits broad generalizability. And dichotomous bankruptcy measures may oversimplify complex financial distress states. So what is the key takeaway here as we conclude? We conclude that liquidity is a key early warning signal for SOE bankruptcy risk. Solvency ratios can be misleading and may indicate over-leverage. And financial health requires a multifaceted diagnostic approach beyond ratios. What is the next step for the future research? We should develop and implement a real-time financial dashboard for SOEs and also be able to expand research to include more qualitative governance and policy variables. So for the references, we thank all those that guided us, all our collaborating partners and our colleagues. For foundational theories, we use agency theory from Jensen and Meklin 1976, resource dependency theory from Pfeffer and Selenak 1978, and the key methodological references as can be shown for mixed method design, Creswell and Planko 2018. Under contextual and contemporary works, the SOE governance and OECD 2021 and TETE 2022. For machine learning applications, Kaiwei 2023 and Bryman 2001 are acknowledged. Thank you very much.